Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love, guys. Now today's first story is one that's been covered in other places, potentially here as well, but it does have a final update added to it as well, so if you want to skip certain parts of the story, timestamps are always down in the description along the timeline below. Thank you. This one's from Fun Elephant 6393, and it says, am I the arsehole for not wanting to contribute to my stepson's college fund? My 39 male and my wife Emily, 38 female, have been married for 12 years. Emily has a son, James, 17, from a previous relationship with Dan. Em left Dan when she caught him cheating with a co-worker. They shared 50-50 custody of James. I met Em about a year after he had left Dan. A year later, Dan married his affair partner, and Em and I got married soon after. James never really bonded to me. I admit that I tried a little too hard initially to get him to like me, but backed off when I realized I was trying too hard, and it was having the opposite impact. Over the years, we've built a tense acceptance of sorts, if that makes sense. Em and I have 3 kids, 10 female, 7 male, and 4 male. James doesn't have a good relationship with them either. He bonds well with Dan's sons, but doesn't like spending much time with our kids. He isn't mean to them, but just ignores them mostly. The eldest 2 now just avoid him when he is home. Em and I both have well-paying jobs, and early on, we decided that I would contribute 80% to our trio's college fund, and Em would do 20%, because she would contribute 100% to James's college fund. We didn't know if Dan was making any such arrangements on his end, but we thought that at least this way, James would have something instead of nothing. Em recently sat him down to talk to him about his college fund. He seemed happy with the financial help he was going to get. He went off to Dan's for the weekend, and when he came back, he asked Em about our kids' college funds. When he learned that the amount was fairly higher than his, he was upset. When he asked about the disparity, Em told him about our college fund setup. He was furious to know that I hadn't contributed to his college fund. He said that I was just pretending to play family with him all these years, that I really didn't care about him and was a heartless arsehole. Em suggested that we could take some money out of our youngest funds to give it to James, and that she would add it back over time. But she said that it's my call, that she won't pressurize me either way and would accept whatever I decided. Quite frankly, I don't want to do it. James idolizes his shitty father, even now that he knows he cheated on his mother. I could deal with his crappy behavior with me, but I never understood his attitude towards our kids. We even tried to go to family therapy. He refused to go because I wasn't his family. Now when he needs money, suddenly I am family. I know I am perhaps being petty, but I don't want to give him the money. Am I the arsehole? Edits. I think some clarifications are in order. 1. I don't hate that James idolizes his father. I hate that he blames his mother for their family breaking up. When James was 13, he had heard from one of his older cousins, Dan's side, what his father had done that led to Emily leaving. When he confronted her about it, she explained. We tried for therapy then, but didn't happen. We'll explain later. Last year, he told his mother that he believes she was responsible, that instead of leaving Dan, she should have forgotten about what he did and continued to stay with him. Em was expectedly shocked, but when she asked him if the situation was reversed and she had cheated on Dan and he left her, would then Dan be blamed for the family breaking up? He said no, that would definitely be her fault, and made no further explanations. This was not as a result of an argument or heat of the moment statement. Ironically, this was a casual dinner table conversation. The other kids had to be excused from the table. 2. When Em and I had gotten together and things were starting to look serious, she had wanted to take him to a child therapist who would help him adjust better to the changing situation around him. Since they shared 50-50 custody, Dan's consent was needed. He refused. When we were going to get married, we tried for therapy. Dan said he got married before us and James had no issues. We were overreacting. He didn't need therapy. When the above incident happened, when Em was pregnant with our daughter, and most recently after last year's incident, this time we asked him directly. We thought if he agreed to family therapy, then we could speak to our lawyer and work around the custody arrangement since he was almost an adult. This was when he refused therapy, saying I wasn't family. 3. For all those saying that I'm treating a teenager like an adult. That I made him feel like the other and not one of us. We tried. When we both started earning well, we wanted to splurge on our kids during birthdays and holidays. James was never excluded. Whatever our kids got, he got too. In fact, as he is older, he got to pick what he wanted. For his 11th birthday, he wanted to go to Disney World. Both of Dan's kids were invited. His youngest son and my daughter are the same age. He went, she wasn't invited. We stayed home. 4. We started the college funds about a year after our daughter was born. Em couldn't start one for James earlier since she was a stay-at-home mum when she was with Dan. It took her a while to get her back on her feet. She wasn't in a position to immediately start a college fund for him. What a lot of you pointed out is right. He's been shortchanged. Em will rectify that and make up the deficit he should get by the time he starts college, but that will still not make as much as the remaining 3. We've decided to sit and have a chat with him this weekend about everything. Over Rice says to the OP he has 2 parents to contribute to college. They can find him. Sounds like Dan had better step up. OP says, I doubt that would happen. Dan has never been good at keeping a steady income flow, and his wife is a stay-at-home mum. They aren't desperately struggling to make ends meet, but I could make an educated guess to say Dan has probably not saved up for any of his kids' college funds. Fair Theme says, not the arsehole, but why in the world did your wife tell him about your other kids' college funds? It's simply none of his business, and giving him the details was just going to upset him. He was perfectly fine with the arrangement before he knew the younger kids are getting more than him. Your wife is the arsehole for opening up a conversation about money with a 17-year-old son, and even more of the arsehole for suggesting you take money out of the other kids' funds to make James happy. I don't blame him for getting upset, but your wife needs to contribute more to his fund if she wants to make him happy. Chatterbox says not the arsehole. His father put that entitlement into his head, that he should have the same amount as the other kids, except his own father should be saving for him as well, and obviously did not. Radically quotes OP and said he said that I was just pretending to play family with him all these years, and then says, you know, it's kind of wild to me that you didn't manage to bond more with a boy you met when he was 5. 5-year-olds are super impressionable, and it's not like he's incapable of bonding with half-siblings. So what's going on here under the hood? It sounds like a lot of this is your stepson's confusion about dealing with the fact that his actual dad is less wealthy and successful than you are, because he's not from you. And if he ends up agreeing that you're better than his actual dad, cheater, unsuccessful, what does that say about him? I also think that the idea of fundamentally separating finances per kid the way you intended is probably not even possible if you're married. Expressing that you intended to contribute nothing to his college fund when you're presumably feeding and housing him and chipping in indirectly for extracurriculars and healthcare. Well, it sounds more like a fiction meant to reinforce emotional distance between the two of you than an accurate financial truth, and that's just needlessly hurtful. So you're the arsehole here for how you handled that obvious setup from James's father. Come on, man, be a teensy bit savvy about very basic tropes. James's dad sounds like a worse arsehole by far, but James here sounds like a normal teenage boy in an understandably challenging situation. So OP came in with their first update and said it's been an eye-opening weekend. Thanks to everyone who weighed in, even the aggressive ones. I knew what I was signing up for posting on Reddit. Before the update, a couple of clarifications because gaps in info turned into wild assumptions. When I said I came on a little too strong with James when we met, some of you pictured me grabbing a toddler by the neck and hissing, "Call me daddy." No. I was nervous and acting like an idiot and used an over-the-top baby voice because I'd barely been around toddlers. Emily later said I sounded like a circus clown on 2 cartons of Red Bull. Cringe? Absolutely. Malicious? No. Many had questions regarding therapy. I shared the timeline in this comment thread, so I'm not going to rewrite that again. Many called my wife the arsehole for sharing the college funds amounts for the kids. I showed her the post. She explained James came back from Dan's with questions when the fund started, how much, etc. He said, paraphrasing, so mine is XXX and theirs is YYY. With his XXX higher than our kids' YYY, without thinking. Yes, stupidly. Emily corrected him, no, yours is AAA and theirs is BBB. that snowballed into what I wrote earlier. It wasn't a diabolical plan to make me pay more. It was a thoughtless correction. With that out of the way, Emily, James, and I sat down for a conversation yesterday. James didn't want to talk to me, but I told him that if he expected me to even think about contributing to his college fund, then I've got loads of questions he needs to answer. It was an extremely long conversation, and many revelations came to be. So I'm going to give a summary of the things we finally found out from James. Even before Emily and Dan had broken up, not divorced, they were never married, Dan had occasionally brought James to his affair partner's place, so James was familiar with the affair partner. After the breakup, Dan immediately moved in with his affair partner. Em, who was a stay-at-home mum till then, struggled initially to get back on her feet. Needless to say, James's home life with Em was a little more chaotic than at Dan's and his affair partner's. Em hadn't told James that she had left his father since he had cheated on her. Telling that to a toddler wouldn't make any sense, but apparently in the early days, Dan used to tell James that Em would eventually come back to him. I think he may have been holding out hope for reuniting with Em, and that's where I came in. Dan told James that as long as I'm around, I would not let Em go back to Dan. When Dan married his affair partner, he told James that it was temporary. It was a way to make Em jealous. When we got married, he told James that it was my way of making it even more difficult for Em to get back to their family. When James had found out from his cousin, Dan's side, that his father had cheated on his mother, which was the reason for their breakup. When James had asked Em about it, she had been open and honest about everything. When he confronted Dan about the same, he told James that Em had left him for a long time and his loneliness made him miss her a lot, so he found some comfort with a affair partner. Emily's father had met with a car accident, and she was with her parents for about 3 weeks to help them. And that's all the alone time Dan could handle before he needed to dip his wick in something. But it was a reasonable enough explanation for James to absolve his father of all sins. When Em got pregnant with our daughter, Dan told James, "Now that I've started pumping my spawn into his mother." Exact words James used. James's family was destroyed forever. He told James that Em and I had been wanting to take him to therapy, which was actually a ruse. What we were really trying to do is take him to a doctor who would declare him a problem child and that would ship him off to boarding school so we could continue to play happy family without being bothered by him. Only Dan and his family was fighting to keep James with them. James admitted that he had hoped his detached behavior around my family and happy and joyous behavior around Dan's would convince Em that my kids and I were evil, and she would eventually leave us. But sadly, I kept knocking up his mum, making it harder for her to leave. Expectedly, Emily was beyond distraught to hear everything. To be honest, in the moment, I couldn't wrap my head around it much either. I asked if Dan had a college fund saved up for him and his sons. James said affair partner's parents have set up a trust for Dan's sons, but that does not include James since he isn't their grandson. Dan's not saved up anything for anyone. I asked James why he suddenly thinks I should contribute to his fund when he has turned down every opportunity for us to be a family. He said he was actually okay with the amount that Em initially told him about, but Dan made him realize that we were undercutting him, so he came back to demand more. I asked if I pay the money, will that then make us family? Even he can't accept me as a step-parent. Can we be friends? Can he be a little more friendlier with my kids when he is around? He straight up said no. He said that after all these years he knows me or my kids are not the evil beings his father made us seem, but he feels I am the reason his parents could never get back together again, and for that he will always hate me. And since my kids are, well, my kids, he's never going to like them either. And since now he knows that Emily isn't going to leave her family, he said his plan was once he was off to college, he would cut off contact with us all. He does plan to eventually get back in touch with his mother when he feels he is ready to forgive for breaking up his family, but he can't do that right now. Emily and I have had a long and honest discussion. I've decided that I will not be making any contributions to James's college fund. Emily will continue the contribution that she was already making and hand it over to him once he turns 18. We will no longer be pursuing family therapy with James. We will not try to change James's mind about going no contact with us after he goes off to college. We've done all that we could do. We're going to stop now. If James is happy with Dan's family, then we're happy for him. It's going to be hard for Emily. But even she has accepted that after James's recent revelations, she's having a hard time reconciling her little boy with this cynical teenager. We have both taken individual and couples therapy before, mainly due to stress and anxiety of James's behavior used to put on us as a family. We're looking into starting again. Hopefully we'll be able to overcome this in time. So OP comes in with another update and says, I've been getting so many messages and comments that I haven't been able to reply to them all. Emily and I are deeply grateful for all the kind words we have received, and even the unkind ones have been insightful in their own way. A lot of you asked how we did not know that Dan was brainwashing James against us. It's not that we didn't know. We knew that some level of parental alienation was happening, hence why we repeatedly advocate for therapy. But we didn't know to what extent. Like I said in a comment before, whenever we tried to talk to James, he would either throw a tantrum or simply sit like a stone and not say a word. Since therapy was denied repeatedly, we really couldn't do much. The fact that Dan filled James's head with this kind of bullshit, we really didn't know. Last year when James spewed his judgment on how Em was to blame for their family breaking up is when we had our first inclination of how much James had been poisoned against us. As for suing Dan for parental alienation, at this point it doesn't matter. James will turn 18 early next year and we have no proof of anything. We did not record the conversation we had with him, and James is not a reliable witness. He would easily lie to protect his father. Now coming to the recent developments. After everything that James has said, Emily was very shocked and devastated. For all those who said she should have told James that Dan was the problem and not us, and so many other things. Reality was that she said nothing because she couldn't. Real life isn't like some scene from a movie or series where characters have replies ready at the tip of their tongue. When your son spews this level of hate towards you, it's hard to comprehend and respond with zingers. That said, we have had time to think things over, and we have considered a lot of the advice that we got from here. Emily has decided that while she will continue to add to James's fund till he turns 18, she will not be handing over the money to him. As per the advice given by many, she'll be paying directly to the institution that James gets admission into. If he chooses not to go to college, then the money will be held back and given to him when he turns 25. In the hopefully very unlikely case of Emily passing before James turns 25, then our lawyer will be in charge of ensuring that James gets the money at the allotted time. This is to ensure that neither James nor Dan can blame me for meddling with money. Since our last conversation, James had not come home. He stayed at a friend's place for a few days, then went back to his father's place. Emily asked him to come over on Saturday, sat him down and told him that since he is hell-bent on giving up his relationship with us, then there was no point on walking on eggshells around him any longer. She told him that she was hurt and disappointed by his behavior. For him to believe that his mother was to be blamed for their breaking up was unacceptable. Em said that if he feels his father cheating is acceptable and she should have gone back to him, then she cannot see eye to eye with him. That is not word for word of the conversation, I'm mostly paraphrasing. She told him that I will not be making any contributions to his fund. Since he doesn't think of me as family, I have no obligations to add to his funds. And if he still feels that his fund is lacking, then he should ask Dan to make up for the deficit. She also told him that he will not be getting direct access to the funds and that the payments from the fund will be made directly to whatever college he attends. He was also made aware of what happens if he doesn't go to college. Emily also let him know that from now on, if he wishes not to come over to our place, he doesn't have to. We have discussed it with our lawyer. While Emily will not be giving up custody yet, she will not be enforcing that James stays with her as per the custody arrangements. He silently listened to everything Em said. He didn't leave his room that night and went back to Dan's place on Sunday. We haven't heard anything from him since then. And then OP comes in with a final update and says, I still keep getting messages for an update, so here it is. But this is the last one. For about 2 weeks after Emily's last conversation with James, when he was told that I would not be making any contribution to his fund and that Emily would be paying directly to any college/university or trade school that James decides to go to, but not hand the money to him. Moreover, he was also told that if he chose not to attend college, he would still get the money, but after he turns 25. After that conversation went down, there was radio silence from him for a little over 2 weeks. He stayed with Dan and Emily did not insist he come over to our place as per the custody arrangement. Then suddenly James called Em saying he's got admission into college and needs his entire college fund to book his admission. here we go. It's been a while since Em and I graduated, but we both know enough to know that's not how it works. Application process starts around this time of year, and deadlines are till what, February, March? No college asks for full payment up front. At most, a small deposit is required to hold a spot after an official acceptance letter is issued. Em said she'd be more than happy to hand over the entire fund, but not to him. She'd make the payment to the college directly. James said the college had no such option. At this point, the conversation was so comically ridiculous, I don't even know what to say. It's like he thought we were brainless idiots. He wouldn't tell us the name of this not at all imaginary college. He wouldn't show us the acceptance letter that he apparently got. He just wanted us to hand over the money. When Emily refused, he started getting agitated, and he started to raise his voice, so Em disconnected the call. Not even an hour later, Dan called. This was surprising for us. In the past 12 years, it was always us who reached out to Dan. Mostly Emily, but on the rare occasion I have too. Majorly begging him to consent for therapy, which he consistently denied. Dan accused us of emotionally abusing James and causing him mental distress. He claimed that by denying James's access to his college fund, we were sabotaging his future and causing him emotional harm. Emily calmly explained that the money in question is her personal savings, intended for James, yes, but not legally or morally owed to him. It could just as easily serve as a retirement fund. There's absolutely no legal basis to claim that money belongs to James. Things got nasty after that, and Dan called Em and I names. So obviously Em hung up. On a positive note, because we were so surprised that Dan has called, we recorded the call. Things went back to radio silence again. Until this Monday, Dan's cousin Julie, mother of the boy, who had told James that it was his dad who had cheated on Em, has always been on good terms with Em. She's a really sweet lady. The twins and my daughter are great friends. She believes Dan is a piece of shit, and James is the only reason she barely maintains a civil relationship with him. She came by and informed us that Dan's wife, the affair partner, is divorcing him. Apparently, he cheated on her too. What a surprise! She separated from him months ago and is living with her parents with her sons. Meanwhile, Dan's parents have been asking family members to lend him money for a new business, but unsurprisingly, no one has pitched in. We now believe his sudden demand for James's college fund may have been tied to that. Emily has tried calling and texting James since then, but he hasn't answered or responded. While our situation isn't resolved yet, this will be my final update. Emily and I are deeply grateful for all the genuine support, empathy, and thoughtful advice we've received. Unfortunately, there have also been some vile and malicious comments and DMs from people hiding behind anonymity to say the worst things possible about me and Emily. And they continue to do this even when I have ignored them and not risen to the bait. We don't need that kind of negative energy in our lives right now. Whatever happens next, we'll face it privately, together as a family. Thank you again to everyone who's been kind and truly helpful. And it's clear what Dan is up to in this situation. It's exactly like the OP said. He's after this money. He wants this money. And James is just basically trying to hand it over to him. It's clear he's been poisoned for a very long time. But at this point, would it be unfair to say? Because for me, I'm not sure I'd be handing over that money at all. I'm not sure if that sounds really brutal or not. But his whole attitude in this, I mean, it sounds like some very red pill logic in some parts. He clearly wants nothing to do with his mum or OP and is constantly like not wanting to be around them, criticizing them constantly. And I'm just like, why the fuck would I give you all that money? Because let's face it, even if he waited to 25 and he still hung around with his dad, and dad did stick around, which I can't see happening to be quite honest, and James gets all this money at 25 and he's able to do whatever the hell he wants with it. We all know what's going to happen with that money. It's going to get absolutely wasted. But at the same time, I don't blame OP and Mum in this for just stepping back from that because, you know, he ain't going to change his attitude anytime soon. There's no acceptance of therapy. Dan's against it. Dan's poisoning on one side constantly. I mean, what do you do in the end? I think you can only step back and hope one day that he matures and sees the situation for what it is. And that's if OP and Mum accept him back after all this. But what do you guys make of this situation? I asked the question to you. Would you hand that money over after all this has gone down? Let us know your thoughts. I'm truly interested. And just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so, so much. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.